Hi, so my name's Leah, and for the past year and few months, I've been working on developing a cozy game called Kitty Corner Cafe. In this video, I want to share with you what my journey has been like developing a game for approximately a year and 3 months. And hopefully, if you are creating your own video game or thinking of making your own game, this can kind of give you an idea of how much progress you may be able to make. And keep in mind too, during this time, I worked part-time, so for about 11 months or so of this whole journey, I was spending about 2 full days per week on creating this game, sometimes 2.5 or 3. However, I did try to keep a very good work-life balance. So if you're wanting to get a realistic idea of what progress can look like while keeping a healthy work-life balance and not working on your game full time, then this video might be able to do that for you. I'm gonna go step by step from the inception of the game to where we are now. So I will have chapters in the description that kind of give you an oversight if you want to jump to any portion of the video. And I will also be including some questions that might help you if you were stuck at any point in the process. So these are just questions that have helped me, that I've asked myself during this journey that have helped me to move forward. I will also include on the screen some of the snippets of the coding or art or writing as we go out throughout the process. I will also put on the screen what months I was working on this part of the process. So to start, we have the ideation or inception of the games. So for me, my game Kitty Corner Cafe came about through multiple different inspirations. And I have some notes that I'm referencing down here in case you see me looking down throughout the video. On June 2023, I had finished creating a illustration portfolio, and I was taking a break from creating artwork and kind of just playing games and working on my art like on the side. During this time, I, for the first time, started playing visual novel games, and I had never experienced this genre of game before. And if you don't know what visual novel games are, they are like a choose your own adventure, and they can sometimes have multiple endings. There are different types of visual novel games. There are many great visual novels out there. The game that really inspired me was Our Life New Beginnings, which is a free game on Steam. I highly recommend it. If you're interested in playing a choose your own adventure type of game, or just a game where you can really insert yourself and make choices and feel like you have a lot of agency, then it's a great genre to dive into, and you kind of get to experience what it can be like to live a different life. So those are things that I really enjoyed when I was playing Our Life. I really liked that aspect of it, and just getting the connection that you can feel from playing a visual novel game. So during this time, I was asking myself, what are all my interests and hobbies, and what experiences lately have been significant to me? So I was thinking about these things, and I was also thinking about, what do I want to tell other people about any of the experiences that I have had in the last few years? So I had just graduated college, and it was a bit of a rough time for me, just adjusting to life outside of college and trying to get a job in the face of the pandemic. Also on top of that, I had recently lost one of my childhood pets, and this had a big impact on me because she was like my dog growing up. So all of these things really influenced the idea of Kitty Corner Cafe. So I thought about my own interests, what I had studied in college, which was neuroscience and psychology, and what I wanted to share with other people and contribute, and things that I thought people weren't really talking about enough. So for me, this was pet loss and grief, and I think that's something that I have not seen many video games tackle to my knowledge. If you know of any, please feel free to leave it in the comments so I can check it out. But this is something that I think a lot of people go through, but it's something that might be kind of dismissed because it is a different type of grief than grieving the passing of a person. There is a specific word for this in psychology that's called disenfranchised grief. So I wanted to have that be the focus of the game, just something that is one of the central themes. So that's part of the ideation. And then I also thought about my interests and hobbies. I really liked playing cozy games. I also really like animals and cats. I have had several pets throughout my life, and I've also worked at dog daycares and training facilities. So because of those experiences and then my background in psychology and neuroscience, I felt like, okay, I really want to create something that can combine these things. And also, I have always loved drawing, and I was trying to pursue a career in illustration. And instead of waiting for someone to give me a project to work on, I thought, what can I make to give to other people? So a few more questions that might be helpful in addition to the ones that I already listed to ask yourself are, what feelings do I want to be validated and shared? Validated for other people, and what feelings do I want to share with other people? What do I want to encourage others to explore and reflect on more? And what do I want to reduce guilt, shame, and stigma around? So those are some questions that helped me to form the idea of Kitty Corner Cafe. After coming up with the general idea for the game, I decided to come up with an elevator pitch, which is a really short summary of what your game is. And this is really important because this is something that can really hook people from the start. So I will share with you what my elevator pitch is here.
In the cozy seaside town of Felicity, you are a cat cafe owner invested in adopting out cats from the local animal shelter to the best possible home for them. As you build meaningful relationships with human and feline friends alike, you discover the joys and hardships of pet ownership.
And then after creating the elevator pitch, it is important to make an outline, especially if you have a very story-driven game. So I created a step-by-step outline and broke it down into chapters on what I wanted to happen in this story, because my game is so heavily story-driven. And after I kind of had the general outline, I was able to create a character sheet and list all of the characters that were going to be in my game and all of the details about them. And I watched several videos just on, and also looked up templates on filling out like the details of a character sheet for a story. So you will need multiple things. So I'll show you what I included for mine.
Hello, so I wanted to show you guys the outline and then also the character sheet that I created. So here is the main outline that I made for Kitty Corner Cafe, and as you can see, I called the different chapters story beats, and then for the sake of the demo, I also broke it down further into different days that happen in the demo. So you can see that here, and then as I was doing the writing, I highlighted in green the things that I've already written the dialogue for, so that's why some of this is highlighted in green. But yeah, so here is a little overview of the outline. So we have one story beat here, which is all the intro, which goes into details. The second chapter story beat, which is opening up the cafe, intro to adoption mechanics. The third chapter, which is doing more adoptions, and then I added in some comments here. And yeah, so this just keeps going and covers all of the entire plot of the story. I don't want to get too far into that. And then also I will show you the character sheet that I created. So here is the character sheet that I made for the characters. And for each character, I filled out this information unless they were such a side character that I didn't need all of these details. So for each character, I have their name at the top, their different motivation on what is driving them in the game, any flaws that the character has, any quirks that will be obvious in the dialogue and choices that you have as you play the game, what the history of the character is, and then this specifically is for yourself, things that you can customize in the game. However, I'll show you quickly an example of this for one of the real characters in the game. So here I'll let you see part of Kaya's character sheet. So their history, quirks, and then in the overview I have the name, age, likes, mannerisms, dislikes, strengths, weaknesses, and then some basics on appearance, which would help me later whenever I got to making the art assets.
And as I defined these characters, I was able to go back to my outline and add into the chapters where I was going to have certain characters interacting in certain ways and what arcs were going to be happening in that outline. But once I had the outline and the characters decided, I also thought about gameplay. So what types of gameplay did I want to add into this game that were going to contribute to the story and the themes? So there were a few really important things for me. So I wanted to definitely center the theme of appreciating pets and their personalities and their individual uniqueness, and also pet loss and grief. So the gameplay elements that I decided to incorporate are centralizing both of those things. Something else that I wanted to centralize in the gameplay was that you can lose a pet and then also get a pet and have new beginnings. So for the general gameplay ideas at first, I kind of just listed out my ideas. I didn't get specific into the mechanics yet. So that wouldn't happen until I started to really code it. But I did kind of say like the general outline of what I imagined that the gameplay could look like. And keep in mind, I did not have any coding experience at this point, so I kept it really simple until I knew more about what would be possible with my game engine and coding. So after I had all of this information, the next step was to write the actual script for the demo of the game. So this involved writing the first 5 chapters of the outline for me. I have about 20 something chapters, and this turned out to take way longer than I thought it would, but it's also a central part of the game, so it's really important. And I'm also going to have to do a lot of editing in this area that I did do early on after I finished writing, but it's not quite done yet. It will be refined before the actual demo comes out. And the reason that I wrote the script before I even started any coding is because I needed to know the requirements of the game in terms of like what dialogue and such I was actually going to put in the code, and then also for the artwork, what character sprites I would need. The script was going to determine all of that, so that had to come first before anything else. So at this time I was working part-time and I was doing a lot of writing every day that I was working on my game, and to take a break from that in between I started working on the art. So I knew an important piece was also going to be character customization, so I did work on the artwork for the character customization in between when I needed a break from writing. So for me, the character customization was going to be your own avatar that will show up in the bottom corner, like this area of the screen, and will update its reactions as you are playing the game and talking to the other characters. That is something that I've always loved in games, so I wanted to incorporate it into Kitty Corner Cafe. So next, after I finished the writing, it was time to get to coding the dialogue. And this first required me to choose a game engine. For me, I looked at the games that I liked and that I was playing, visual novel games, and the game engines that they used, which was Renpy. So during my research into game engines, I saw that a lot of visual novel games use the game engine Renpy, and then some also use Unity. So I looked more into that, and because I didn't have any coding experience, I decided to start with Renpy because that was going to be an easier engine for me to jump into and start right away, and it fit my needs more. Since I was creating a visual novel game, and any mini games that I'm including in the game are going to be a bit simpler. Renpy is highly structured for creating choose your own adventure visual novel games, so I decided to go with that game engine. So after choosing the game engine, I had to actually set up the project in GitHub, which is what I chose to like host the project, I guess. So I didn't know anything about this, so I had to get this set up. Luckily, I was able to get my dad to help me because he is a programmer. Once I had it set up, I watched tutorials on how to code dialogue and character expression changes, so I did that. And it's important to note here, I didn't have the final art for any background or characters yet. So I wanted to get all of the dialogue and code in there for the story aspect of the game, because then I would know what character sprites I needed to create. So for the main characters, I decided I would create more variation in facial expressions than maybe some of the side characters. So what I decided to do is to create some preliminary sketches, really rough sketches. So these were not anything like what the final art would be, just to have a idea of how the game would flow, and so I could continue coding. So once I had the code for the characters determined, I was able to go in and see all of the art assets that I would need to make for each character, so all the different expressions I would need to make. So I made a list of all the expressions I would need for each character. So once I created this list of all the character expressions that I needed, then I was able to start actually making the art. And I personally used my iPad Pro and the app Procreate and an Apple Pencil to create all the artwork for the game. And I will put on screen some of the artwork as I am talking about it during this section. This took me a while to get through all of the character designs, and once I had the character designs, then I went into making the specific facial expressions that I would need for the game and saving those and exporting them into the game's code. So after the character art for the characters in game were complete, then I finished all of the character customization art. I still had a few things that I wanted to add and tweak, and there are still a few things here and there that I want to get around to fixing before the demo is fully complete, but that is going to be something for later. So once I added in the real character sprites into the code, then came the more challenging part for me, and this was the first big coding task of the game that required more Python and coding knowledge. So Renpy uses Python, which makes it a very beginner-friendly game engine to code in. So luckily I was able to learn it between watching YouTube videos and then also using AI like ChatGPT, or if you are using VS Code, then I also recommend Copilot. It is an extension, then that is a really helpful AI too. I noticed that when I started coding last year that ChatGPT was not as great at helping me to fix problems in Renpy, but this year it is better than it was last year, and this is as of October 2024. But anyways, so I had to kind of figure out how I was going to code the character customization and what I wanted the screens to look like for that. So I made like a mock-up in Canva, and I do recommend to use like the free version of Canva to make mock-ups if you want to just have an idea of what the UI could look like for part of your gameplay. So once I had an idea of what I wanted it to look like, then I got to coding the customization and screen. So this was like a big learning experience for me, and it kind of taught me that when you're coding, it is a lot of problem solving and it takes a lot of persistence, and there can be frustrations, but then when you get to the end result and as you make steady progress, even just solving one thing, it can feel so good. So especially when you're working on your own project. So I highly recommend to just keep going and keep trying and use the tools available to you to see where you might be going wrong or what you can change. Sometimes when you're coding, it may require you to completely scrap what you did and take a different approach, which is totally okay too. It's just part of the process. So making the character customization screens, I don't have the final like backgrounds for them yet, but I will be able to show you some of it. It was very difficult for me, but it was also thrilling and really rewarding to see it coming to life. So yeah, that was really cool. And at this point I realized that I should have done this earlier on in the process, which is to create a way I can track everything that I have left to do to get my demo done. So to track all of these things and tasks that I needed to do, I decided to use Asana. So I can create a project in Asana. There is a free version of Asana, which is what I was using. I was using it at my other job, so that's how I was familiar with it. But you can basically break things down into a project and then sections and tasks and subtasks, and you can add descriptions, set like goal due dates, assign people if you have multiple people. So that's what I did. And I listed out everything. And once I had this whole list of all of these tasks, I then also was deciding, like, I realized, okay, I have a lot of work left. How am I going to prioritize some of these ideas that have been floating around in my brain? And I went to Discord and was chatting with people about if I should add in certain features into my game. And someone recommended that I make a list of must-have features that are core to my game, and then some like nice-to-have features, and so on. So I created a priority list in my Asana as well, which is a really good guide. So I can focus on getting the must-haves done for the demo, and then if I have time or I really want to, then I can add in some of the things that would be nice to have but aren't required. And now that I had a list of all of the art assets that I was going to need for the game, I was able to start making the background art. Background art has taken me the longest by far compared to anything else besides maybe the writing, but it has taken me a really long time. And keep in mind, it was around the holidays that I was creating all this background art too. So I created all of the background art for the game, and it was really important to make it cohesive with the character sprites and also to fit the vibe. So early on, before I made the character sprites, I had a color palette in mind for the game, and I made sure to stick to the color palette in all of the backgrounds that I drew. And something else about the background art is that some of them were customizable. So your cat cafe and the cat room where all the cats are going to be customizable in the game. So this required even more artwork to be made since I was making alternate options. But however, because I had already coded the character customization, once I got around to coding the customizable backgrounds, it was a lot easier than it was when I first coded the character customization. So once I completed the background art, I also drew some of the close-up illustrations that are important to the story that I'm going to include in the game. So I created some of those, and I won't show you much of those because those are kind of like special moments that you earn throughout the game. So you'll have to stay tuned until the demo's out to be able to see those. But I did work on those. So next we come to the gameplay coding. So as I mentioned earlier, I had made a list of the gameplay that I wanted to include. However, I did have to refine this so that it would be more specific and include all of the mechanics that I wanted to incorporate and how it was going to work. So part of Kitty Corner Cafe is that you will play games to get to know each cat's personality, so you can fill out their cat card, which has all of their important details, which are like from the vet, but then also there's a personality section where you're able to fill in their personality traits. And this will help you with other parts of the game where you will be matching up customers to their cat that they're going to adopt and take home if they are a good fit for each other. So I did research on cat personalities and looked to see what studies have been done on cat personality traits, and that is what guided my choices and the gameplay. So there are a few major cat personality gameplay aspects. There was a game where you are testing how playful the cat is, a game where you are seeing how affectionate they are, and then a game where you're seeing how skittish they are or aren't. So this is the step that brings us closer to the current day. So I have been working on coding the gameplay. Now that I have a lot of the other aspects done and I have the art, I am able to actually focus on refining the gameplay code, making it fun, and making it achieve what I want it to, and also learning a lot in the process about coding because it requires a little bit more complex of functions and coding to be written in Python, which I don't have as much experience in, but I am gaining it a lot more now. So the first game that I worked on coding was a slider game, and there is a YouTube video that really helped me at the start of figuring out how to code this, so I'll link that below because it was helpful to me, even though it didn't fully fit all of my requirements and needs, but it was a really good jumping off point. So I created this slider game, and I'm referring to it as the slider game, but it will probably be called something else in the actual game. And so after that, I finished that somewhat recently. It was about a week ago. I'm now working on the next game, which is the affection game, which is where you get to pet the cat and interact with it and see how affectionate it is and what kind of pets and areas that it likes to be pet or doesn't like to be pet. That is the next game that I have been working on coding, and it has been a lot easier to code as I've kind of learned more techniques and how to do things in Python, and I kind of have the structure of my first mini game in the code that I can use for this next game as well. So that is something to keep in mind. If you're feeling like it's really challenging to do the coding, it will get easier over time, I promise. And you will always run into things that you might not know what to do next, or you might feel stuck with like an issue that keeps popping up, but you have to just be persistent and look into it and just keep trying different solutions until you reach the issue. And also looking into how to debug things can also be helpful. And as of May of this year, I've been working full-time at another job, so I have been working on this game just in my free time in the early mornings or in the evenings. So I don't have as much time as I used to work on Kitty Corner Cafe, but it is still in progress, and I hope to release the demo pretty soon in the next few months. So stay tuned for that. I will be taking you with me through the next steps and things that I need to do for the game. So there are still some areas of the artwork that I need to finish. So things like UI, like buttons and such. I don't have any of the fully completed buttons. I don't have the main game's title card or background. However, I do have a lot of the other art finished, so there are just some things here and there that I have to do. So the next steps for me are going to be to finish the coding, to create the UI art, to polish anything that needs polishing both in the art and in the coding, and then also I will have to edit the writing, which I do suspect is going to take me a while because I want to make sure that the dialogue really is fitting the purpose of the story and that the scenes that I have are naturally progressing and leading to scenarios that make sense. So yeah, stay tuned for more on Kitty Corner Cafe, and if you have any questions on any parts of the process, then let me know and I would be happy to talk more about certain areas, and I may also create some tutorials on how I made the mini games or character customization and such in the future. So if you would like to see that, let me know in the comments. And let me know, are you interested in making a cozy game? Are you in the middle of making a cozy game and you're feeling stuck in some area or just looking for inspiration? I'm always excited to meet other people who are interested and just like cozy games, or who even are making their own cozy games. So let me know if you are, and I'm excited to get to chat with you. But yeah, stay tuned for more updates on Kitty Corner Cafe, for more tutorials, and you can find me online at Leah Elise Art, or I will link Kitty Corner Cafe's TikTok below. I have not yet come up with a game studio name, but that is my other dream after releasing this game, is that I want to run a game studio, so I will need to come up with a game studio name. But yeah, for now you can find me online at Leah Elise Art, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye!